Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Elise, and this is 10 to Life, true crime channel here, guys. We talk all things true crime. So thank you for stopping by and checking out the channel and today's video. I hope you appreciate the case coverage that we'll be talking about today, and consider supporting the channel by hitting subscribe and that thumbs up button. And for everybody who's a returning 10 to Lifer, welcome back. As always, thank you for joining me today, and I'm so happy to have you here with me. Today, we are going to talk about breaking updates in the case out of Idaho of the 4 university students who were just brutally and senselessly murdered. There is, of course, information pouring in every single day, every single hour, actually, it seems, and so much more information has now come to light. We are hearing new reports from the coroner talking about the actual, not just the cause of death, but the wounds themselves that were found on the bodies of these 4 young students. We're hearing about more details about the possible way that the perpetrator entered the house, the fighting that may have taken place, and the defensive wounds. A lot more information. So if you haven't been following this case closely and you're still getting caught up, pause this video and check out my previous video that I just put up this morning, because it'll bring you current as to where we are today before we go into all these updates. So pause this, go watch that, then come back here. But for those of you who have been following this case, you can of course pick it up right here and it'll make complete sense to you. So guys, let's get right into these updates.
10 to Life with Elise starts right now.
We now know that the girls took an Uber home. When we last saw them on the footage, they went out of the line of vision from the camera, and we weren't sure if they walked home, we weren't sure how they got home, but it is confirmed by Kaylee's sister that they took an Uber home. They live approximately 1.5 miles away from that food truck. So, if they had gone into the Uber and gone directly home, we also saw that hooded guy kind of splinter off and go the opposite direction behind the building, which doesn't necessarily mean much. It would relatively be a long walk, 1.5 miles to their place of residence if he was the one purposefully attacking them. So I just kind of want to walk through first the timeline that we now have a little bit more knowledge behind. So the girls take an Uber home and they arrive home approximately around 2 a.m. Then at approximately 2:26 a.m., Kaylee called Jack 6 times. Now, we don't know if any messages were left on those calls. We don't know what the context was behind any of those, but according to Kaylee's sister, she did attempt to call Jack 6 times, and this is at 2:26 a.m. Then we know, of course, according to law enforcement, that these 4 students were killed between 3 and 4 a.m., so only 30 minutes after those calls were made. Now, let me just show you the interview of Kaylee's sister, because she is like the sleuth of all sleuths as far as trying to get answers for her sister, and she broke it all down this morning.
Olivia Gonzalez isn't waiting for police. She's tracking down her own leads to find her sister Kaylee's killer.
We're not getting any answers, and we're not going to settle for that.
Hi.
It was Olivia who found the potentially crucial video of her sister and Madison Mogan at a food truck just hours before they were murdered. She also tracked down their Uber driver.
I found neighbors' Ring camera footage so that I can verify that the Uber driver took her home.
She's also raising questions about why her sister called a young man named Jack multiple times the night she was slain.
At 2:26 a.m., Kaylee starts to call Jack. Kaylee calls Jack 6 times between 2:26 a.m. to 2:44 a.m.
Gosh, I give you a lot of credit. You're almost like a detective here, putting all the pieces.
I'm very sorry to meet you this way. What do you want people to know about your sister?
Yeah, I think the most important thing to know about Kaylee is she was a go-getter and she was an absolute fighter. And I want people to take this personally because she was everyone's daughter. You know, she's the neighbor, she's the friend. You know, she was the girl who made your coffee in the morning. And everyone should be taking this personally.
So we're taking it personally, and it doesn't make any sense, certainly not to you. In terms of what you understood about your sister's life, was there any threat that she had ever had? Was there anybody who was coming after her on social media? Did she have a past, a problem with a boyfriend or a friend? Anything to inform why somebody would do something so violent to her, her friend, her other roommate, and her boyfriend?
Absolutely, there's nothing. There's no boy problem. There's no threat. There's no high risk lifestyle that could have indicated this. It has taken all of us completely by shock, and we have absolutely no ideas. None.
Now, your frustration, other than just dealing with the tremendous loss for your family, is what in terms of the investigation?
I think this happened in a small town, and I absolutely understand that local authorities were probably overwhelmed, and I don't blame them at all. They did exactly what they should have done. But we're losing critical time, and I want more coverage. I want more done. I understand that we can't release information. It's an ongoing investigation. I don't ask for that. I don't want to impede on anything, but I want more people speaking out. And if that takes the police to push that agenda, that's fine. But unfortunately, I feel like it's been me and the families pushing that agenda, and that's been really difficult.
Now, when I did some digging, something that I found interesting, and this could just be an error in an article, who knows, maybe not, but we know according to Kaylee's sister, she was calling Jack multiple times. But also it says that Maddie was calling somebody named Jack. You can see in this article, it says at 2:26 a.m., Kaylee starts to call Jack. Kaylee calls Jack 6 times between 2:26 a.m. to 2:44 a.m. From 2:44 to 2:52, Maddie calls Jack 3 times. Then Kaylee makes a final call to him at 2:52 a.m., and they are both never heard from again. So who is this Jack guy, and why were they calling him so much? Now let's go back to the timeline. So we know they left the food truck, they took the Uber home, they arrive home around 2, the phone calls are happening around 2:25, then the next thing we know, 30 minutes later, possibly an hour later, is when the murders occur. How did somebody get in? In the press conference, law enforcement said there were no signs of forced entry. There were no signs that anything had been broken into. But according to sources, and I believe Xana's father, it is believed that they got through the sliding glass door. Apparently, there is a numeric code on the front door, and although many people do know the code to this house because apparently they'd have parties and, comings and goings of all of their friends, it's believed that this person entered through the sliding glass door. Now, this is key, and we'll talk about it more here as we continue. But the sliding glass door is on the second level. This is a 3-story home. The first level is technically the basement / underground looking kind of area. It's the one sitting lower. Then you have the second level, and then you have the third level. So the sliding glass door is on the second level. That would be the point of entry. Now, one of the main things everybody's questioning is how could one single person kill 4 people with a knife without a gun? Now, and did they put up a fight? So Xana's dad, in his interview, said that she did in fact have defensive wounds and had bruising from the knife. She put up a fight. She fought this person.
Coronado says there's one thing the autopsy shows for certain. Xana, a strong-willed girl, fought her killer until the very end.
Bruises and maybe hurt by the knife or whatever.
She fought like hell. I do think it is possible for one person to kill 4 people with a knife based on the logistics of the house. And once again, we're going to get there soon. Just hang tight with me. I'm trying to walk you through the whole thing. Now, in a new report from a county coroner, she sheds more light on the actual wounds themselves. Not just the cause of death, not just the manner of death, but actually the wounds. And in this interview, she says that there were multiple stab wounds. She also says that with each individual, there was a lethal stab wound to the chest area. So multiple all over, and then a lethal one to the chest area, which many people were questioning if maybe their throats had been slashed or something to that degree, but that apparently is not the case.
And so can you tell me if there were multiple stab wounds per victim, or were these sort of, individual lethal stab wounds that may have been less in number but more in lethality?
There were multiple stab wounds, yes, on them. So, and
were there? Go ahead.
And most of them had just like one that was the lethal stab wound. Yes.
Can you describe what that one might have been?
But they were to the fatal ones were to the chest area or the upper body area.
She also states that they were likely sleeping. When the reporter asks her, were they found in different rooms, she says she can't answer that because law enforcement hasn't released that information, but then she does confirm that they were found in their beds, which I think it's safe to assume based on that information that they were found on separate floors if they were found in their beds, because clearly they're probably not all, hopped in on one bed.
Were they found in separate areas of the house?
It was late at night or early in the morning, so it seems likely that maybe they were sleeping.
Were they found in separate areas of the house?
That hasn't been disclosed yet.
Can you tell me, when you say that they might have been sleeping, were they found in beds?
Yes.
She also says in this, which is one of the biggest things that caught my attention, is that this was a large knife and that these were not puncture wounds, meaning not normal small puncture wounds you would see with a regular sized knife. In my last video, we talked about this knife because there's been, attention brought saying they're on the hunt for a Rambo style knife. We were asking, could it have been a machete or something like that? So she says that it was a large style knife, not puncture wounds, which then takes you one step further into believing this probably is a much larger type of knife.
Were there, and I only ask this because it sometimes determines what kind of a crime this was, a crime of passion, a random crime, a fight, a struggle. Was there, were any of them slashed? Were any of their necks cut? Or were these all puncture wounds?
Well, it was a pretty large knife, so it's really hard to call them puncture wounds. And they were definitely stabbings, and it has to be somebody that's pretty angry in order to stab 4 people to death.
So let's talk about the logistics of that home. It's being reported that the 2 surviving roommates lived on the first floor, which is that not true basement floor, but the one beneath, the ground level. Then Ethan's parents allegedly confirmed that Ethan was on the second floor with his girlfriend, Xana, that's where they were staying. Then it's been reported that Kaylee's room was on the 3rd level. It hasn't been confirmed if Maddie's was as well, but I would assume because they were such best friends and like sisters growing up together, that they would either be in the same room or at least on the same level. Now, in my last video, I brought up the question of what could be the motive here. For such a targeted and gruesome attack, what could be the motive? From my previous video, you probably remember that I had called out the guy in the tan hat at the food truck. He seemed to be having a long conversation, about 8 or 9 minutes long, with the other young man who was wearing the hood and the leather jacket. Now, the man in the hood and the leather jacket is, according to, public opinion, one of the biggest suspects out there right now because he appeared to be with the girls. So my question in the last video was, okay, well, this guy in the tan hat or tan jacket seemed to be talking to him for a really long time. Has he come forward and said anything? Well, he has. He has posted on his TikTok that he did, in fact, talk to the police, that when he was talking to this guy in the hood, he was saying he was there just to make sure that the girls got home safely and that nothing seemed really askew to him. Now, in that video, I had mentioned that it appeared that Kaylee and Maddie were walking up to the food truck with this guy in the hoodie, that they were all together, that then the girls start ordering food, he hangs back, they're talking with people they know, that they recognize, they're on their phone, he's still hanging back, but that they all walked up together. And based on personal experience and just by seeing that footage, it's my belief that they were probably all 3 at the bar together. They perhaps invited him to come hang out after or come get food with them. So that's why they all walk up to the food truck together. They're ordering their food. He's waiting for them, thinking he's still going home with them or with one of them. Then at the end, we see they kind of ditch him in a way to where they're on their phone a lot. Then they go off in the other direction behind the truck, reportedly hopped into an Uber. We can see him gesture kind of like, what's going on? And then he goes the opposite direction. And again, this is just my opinion based on what I'm observing, so let me know what you think. But I believe they arrived there at the food truck together. They had plans to go back to the house together, maybe after party, drink some more, hang out some more. Then as they're ordering their food, they're like, we're going to ditch this guy, which, embarrassingly, I've done this in the past myself. And then he gets mad and then whatever. We talk about motive a little bit. A lot of people, of course, think that this guy in the hood is suspect number 1 because he was with them. He was kind of lurking behind. He was the last person to be seen with the girls. Could it be him? And we talked about, could it be retaliation? Could he have been invited over with the girls, then they ditch him, he gets mad, and so he retaliates? Now, I'm not going to give names. I'm just going to give initials here because a lot of you guys who are on the Reddit threads and in the Facebook group already know the names, but we're not going to put it on here because there isn't any proof yet of anybody's involvement. But what I will say is this. There is a lot of suspicion that this person at the food truck is a young man by the name of Jack S. Now, I did some sleuthing of my own, and I found this Jack S person on social media, and there are some things I will say that give me a little bit of pause with this. First and foremost, he follows Maddie, and Maddie follows him back on social media, but he doesn't follow any of the other friends, and they don't follow him. In addition to that, his social media pictures look a lot like the person in the hood on the footage. On top of that, he has a lot of hunting photos on social media with a very similar knife to the Rambo style knife that law enforcement had called out. Now again, this could very, very, very well just all be coincidental, but this is something being talked about out there, and when I did my own digging, these are some of the things that I noticed about this particular person. And it's also being said, which this is just completely alleged, I have not seen any proof of this, that this person is also a student and their neighbors. Now, just this afternoon, it was released that the guy in the hoodie and the black jacket was identified, and police did question him. They have not officially ruled him out, but they did say that he is not a suspect or a person of interest at this time. I also want to be clear, there's a lot of misconception going out there right now from a few tweets. So there are 3 people with the letter J as their first name. There is Jack D, Jack S, and Jake. Jake is reportedly Maddie's boyfriend. I don't know where he was that night, what the story is, but he's not, as far as I know, he's not a suspect or anything like that, but Maddie's boyfriend's name is Jake. Jack D is who she was calling. Jack S is the person that people suspect is in that hooded jacket in the video, and also the hunter and everything else that I had mentioned. But let's talk again about motive, because the police said that this was a targeted attack, meaning that something at the crime scene had to give them the inclination that 1 or 2 of these people were the target, and that it wasn't just a random act against these 4 kids. So what was it that makes them believe this was targeted? We also are hearing, now as more details are coming to light, that this was a truly gruesome crime scene. We know there were multiple stab wounds, but apparently there were so many stab wounds that there was blood everywhere. And experts are saying that because of this, the suspect had to have left the house covered in blood, literally walking away from this home in blood, so that more than likely they left a bloody shoe print behind. Perhaps as they were using the knife, because there was so much blood and it was slippery, they could have cut themselves, so maybe their blood is behind at the crime scene and it's contaminated. So certainly there must be evidence outside of the home, wherever this person may be, that either gives some sort of trail of where the blood went, from the front door, from the dirt trail, wherever it was, because apparently this person would have been covered in this blood. And in another report that not many people are talking about right now, that would go in line with this being targeted, Kaylee apparently confided in a student 2 months ago that she had a stalker. Now, we don't know the details of that at this point. It has just recently been reported. But if that is true, and if this was targeted like they're saying, could Kaylee have been the target all along?
People talk before this incident, and I talked to one student, and I agree with this. It was twice removed from the person that said it, Kaylee. But Kaylee 2 months ago complained about a stalker.
And there may be something to that.
So let's fast forward for a second. The girls arrive home. The phone calls are made, and then the murderer approaches. He then gets to the house, opens the sliding glass door on the 2nd level. He would see Ethan and Xana, who were not his targets, but now are getting in the way of him. They weren't the target, but they had to, act and get rid of them so that they could get upstairs to Kaylee. They go upstairs to Kaylee. Maddie's also in the way, and then they attack Kaylee. the true target. Don't forget, there was also that other previous threat just a couple of months ago, and it was also about a young man with a knife. And this alert that went out says, on September 12th, 2022 at 8:05 p.m., the Moscow Police Department received a report that a group of students were walking between the steam plant parking lot and the student rec center on Paradise Path and were threatened by a person with a knife. No individual was harmed in this incident, but campus community members are advised to be cautious. The suspect is described as a white male, 18 to 22 years old, wearing all black clothing and a black baseball cap. The male was on a nondescript mountain bike, had a blue backpack, and was last seen heading east on Paradise Path. The suspect has not been identified and is still at large. And then it goes on to say, be vigilant, keep your doors locked, and here's the number to contact with any information. Now, these two incidents could certainly be unrelated, absolutely. Or, who knows, maybe they are related. But as information continues to come in, and as everybody tries to make sense of this, the family, the friends, the public who's so invested, what do you think? Do you think that this hooded guy is just, a red herring and that this is something completely different? Do you think that this was perhaps targeted and that's why and the reason that all four of them were unfortunately brutally murdered is because Ethan and Xana got in the way from being on that entry-level floor? What is it that you think is the truth here? And who knows, maybe by the time this video uploads, we'll have more information. I don't know, probably. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Meanwhile, all of the families have set up GoFundMe accounts to help aid in the cost of funeral expenses and everything else that comes along with something like this horrific tragedy. So please, if you feel inclined to do so, take a look at those and donate as you wish. But regardless, please just continue to keep this family and the friends and everybody in your thoughts and prayers, because this is not only just a horrific, senseless murder, but it is just so brutally calculated, in my opinion, and really could be described as a massacre. It's horrific. I don't know how you bounce back from something like this as a family member. I don't know how you even begin to heal from something like this. So please just continue to keep all of them in your thoughts. All right, guys, thanks again for tuning in. And until the next one, stay safe. Bye.